The rain had been falling since dawn, turning the small suburban streets into thin rivers where reflections of streetlights shivered like frightened ghosts. A single dad named Rayan stepped out of his modest home, pulling the zipper of his worn jacket up to his throat. Beside him, his loyal dog Max, a 4-year-old German shepherd with warm brown eyes and a soldier's discipline, stood alert, sensing the tension in the air. Rayan had raised Max since he was a tiny pup. "Ready for the morning walk, buddy?" he whispered. Max wagged his tail once sharply as if saying yes. Rayan wasn't just a single dad. He was the kind who carried the weight of every responsibility on his shoulders. His daughter, 8-year-old Noor, depended on him completely. Since losing his wife 2 years earlier, Rayan had become both father and mother, teacher and protector, warmth and shield. But that morning, Noor was at home, asleep, wrapped in the safety of her father's love, while somewhere across town, another girl her age had been reported missing. The news had broken late last night. A 9-year-old girl named Hania had disappeared from her front yard. The entire community was holding its breath, hoping it was a misunderstanding, a runaway moment, or a mistake, anything but what everyone feared. Rayan had stayed up scrolling the updates, worry twisting inside him even though he didn't know the family. A lost child was every parent's nightmare. He walked Max down the quiet street, letting his mind drift. Max's ears twitched suddenly, his nose lifting toward the wind. "What is it?" Rayan asked, slowing down. Max's tail stiffened, his posture straightening with unusual intensity. Rayan followed the dog's gaze toward the narrow forest trail that cut behind the neighborhood. "Probably a cat," he murmured. But Max wasn't responding like he usually did to small animals. He was tense, focused, almost urgent. They continued walking, but Max kept looking back at the trail as though someone was calling him. By the time they made the loop and returned home, Rayan found a police car parked nearby. Officer Zane, a seasoned investigator known for his calm demeanor, stepped out. His uniform was damp from the rain. "Morning, Rayan. You seen anything unusual?" he asked. "Not really." Max reacted to something in the woods, though, Rayan admitted. Max stood beside him, still alert. Officer Zane nodded, rubbing his chin. "We're searching every corner. That little girl, Hania, still hasn't been found." Rayan felt a strange heaviness settle inside him. There was something about Max's earlier behavior that tugged at his thoughts. Dogs sensed things humans couldn't. Maybe it was nothing. Or maybe it was everything. That night, after putting Noor to sleep, Rayan sat on the couch, mind spinning. The woods. Max's reaction. The missing girl. Finally, unable to ignore the unease any longer, he stood up. Max immediately perked up. "Let's go," Rayan whispered. Max darted to the door. The forest trail was darker now, lit only by the faint moon peeking through restless clouds. Rayan held a flashlight, its beam slicing through the shadows. Max moved ahead, nose low, tail stiff, steps deliberate. "Easy, boy. We're just checking," Rayan said, though his own voice trembled. They walked deeper until Max froze. His ears pricked sharply. He growled, a deep, controlled warning. Rayan stopped breathing. "What is it?" he whispered. Then from within the trees a sound emerged. Not a shout. Not a scream. Just a faint whimper, a child's whimper. Rayan's heart kicked into his throat. "Oh my God." Max stepped forward, and the beam of Rayan's flashlight caught something pale behind a fallen log, a tiny face streaked with dirt, eyes wide with terror. A girl, Hania. Before Rayan could speak, Max lowered himself, crawling slowly toward her, tail low, posture soft, less like a guard dog, more like a friend. Hania's lips trembled. Her hands were tied with rope. But what she did next froze Rayan where he stood. She lifted 2 fingers, tapped them twice on the ground, then pointed at Max. It wasn't random. It was deliberate, a signal, a plea. Max whimpered softly and inched closer. Hania made the gesture again, 2 taps. Point to the dog, her eyes begging him to understand. Rayan's pulse hammered as a chilling realization dawned on him. She wasn't signaling Max. She was warning them. Someone else was here. Before Rayan could react, a rough voice snarled from the shadows. "Who's there?" Rayan grabbed Max's harness. A tall man stepped out, his face masked, holding a small metal pipe. "Back off," he barked. Rayan's breath hitched. The kidnapper. Max growled deep and thunderous. The man lunged toward them, but Max was faster. With a sudden leap, he tackled the attacker, knocking him to the ground. The pipe clattered onto the wet leaves. "Max, careful!" Rayan shouted, but Max knew exactly what he was doing. He pinned the man's arm with controlled force. Rayan grabbed the rope from Hania, freeing her shaking wrists. "You're safe now," he whispered. But the girl clutched his jacket, eyes wide with fear. "Another one. There's another man," she sobbed. Before Rayan could question her, a second figure burst from behind a tree, sprinting toward them. Max barked, furious, but this attacker wasn't running at Rayan. He was running at Hania. Rayan threw himself in front of her, ready to take whatever was, coming, but headlights exploded through the trees as another voice roared, "Police, stop right there!" Officer Zane and 2 other officers stormed into the clearing. The second man froze as guns were drawn on him. Zane tackled him to the ground, cuffing him with swift precision.
Rayan?
"What the hell are you doing out here?" "She gave a signal," Rayan panted, trembling. "She signaled Max." Hania nodded desperately. "I heard the men say they weren't afraid of adults. But dogs, they were scared of dogs, so I tried to call the dog. I hoped someone would have a dog." She looked at Max with awe, tears streaming down her face. Max walked to her gently, bumping his nose against her hand. She hugged him instantly. Officer Zane exhaled sharply, looking at Rayan with a stunned expression. "You found her before we did. And your dog." He shook his head in disbelief. That was incredible. But the moment wasn't over. As the officers escorted the kidnappers out, Hania clung to Rayan's sleeve. "Please don't leave," she whispered. "Stay with me." Rayan knelt. "I'm not going anywhere." Max circled the 2 of them protectively, tail still tense but posture softening now that the danger had passed. Soon ambulances arrived. Hania was wrapped in a blanket, checked by paramedics, and reunited with her frantic parents who arrived moments later, sobbing and thanking God and everyone in sight. When they saw Rayan and Max, they ran to them, falling to their knees. "You saved our daughter," Hania's mother cried, clutching Rayan's hands. Her father hugged Max tightly, whispering gratitude through shaking breaths. Rayan felt overwhelmed, almost embarrassed. It wasn't just us. She was brave. She found a way to ask for help. Officer Zane nodded. "If you hadn't listened to your dog, this could have ended differently." The police secured the area, packed evidence, and loaded the kidnappers into the vehicles. As the flashing lights faded, Rayan stood in the quiet forest, Max sitting by his side, both staring upward as the rain finally stopped. The next day, Rayan woke early. Noor came running to him. "Baba, why is everyone talking about Max? He's a hero?" Rayan smiled, ruffling her hair. "Yes, he helped save a little girl." Noor hugged Max proudly. "Good boy." Later, the police department invited Rayan and Max to a community gathering where Hania's family publicly thanked them. Hania ran straight into Max's arms, burying her face in his fur. "I knew someone would understand my signal," she whispered. Rayan looked at Officer Zane, who shook his head in amazement and smiled. "Sometimes heroes don't wear badges," Zane said. "Sometimes they wear fur." The moment was warm, healing. But one question still lingered in everyone's mind. How did that little girl know to signal a dog? Hania shyly explained. "My grandfather used to train rescue dogs. He told me animals listen even when people don't, so I tried to talk to the dog. And he found me." Max sat proudly, chest puffed out like a knight who had just completed a mission. From that day forward, Max became something of a local legend. Children adored him, adults respected him. And Rayan, who had always loved him, found a newfound pride in the dog, who had once been just his best friend, but was now a hero to the community. One evening, weeks after the rescue, Rayan and Max were sitting outside their house when Officer Zane stopped by again. "We checked everything," he said. "Because of your discovery, we also found evidence that those men were connected to other cases. You helped us stop something much bigger." Rayan swallowed hard. "I didn't do anything special." Zane shook his head. "You listened. Most people don't." As the officer left, Noor came out with 2 mugs of hot cocoa. "Baba, tell me again how Max saved the girl." Rayan laughed softly. "You never get tired of that story?" "No," she said firmly. "Because Max is our hero." Max rested his head on Noor's lap, tail thumping. Rayan looked at them, his daughter, his dog, his little family, and felt a peace deeper than the quiet night around them. Life had tested him. Grief had broken him. Responsibility had weighed him down. But moments like this reminded him why he kept going. Sometimes a hero was the one who saved others. Sometimes a hero was the one who stayed strong for their own child. And sometimes, a hero was a dog who understood the silent cries of a little girl lost in the dark. But one thing was certain: the night Hanaya sent a secret signal to Max, fate chose a single dad and his loyal companion to be exactly where they were needed. And because of that, a child was saved, a community healed, and a dog became a symbol of hope. Max closed his eyes, resting peacefully, unaware of the legend he had become, just happy to be next to the people he loved. And Rayan whispered into the quiet night, "Good job, buddy. You did more than anyone expected." Max lifted his head and nudged Rayan's hand. And somewhere in the distance, the forest stood silent, not as a place of fear anymore, but as the place where a brave little girl's signal reached the right heart and the right dog.